Hey everybody, welcome to our session today where we're going to be discussing utilizing blogs in the world language classroom. Thank you so much for being here, joining me live today. If you are here, please feel free to explore the chat function and let me know a little bit about yourself. Let me know what languages you teach, as well as how long you've been teaching, how long you've been utilizing Duolingo for schools, as well as where you're located, where you're joining me from. I'll introduce myself as well. If you do not know me, my name is Bridget. I work for Duolingo for Schools. I run our Educators Network, which I'm going to be discussing a little bit later as well. It's our private Facebook group of Duolingo educators from around the world who share tips and tricks and resources. So I'm going to be inviting you a little later to join us if you're not already a member. I am a past language teacher. I taught French for 5 years in upstate New York before I moved to the south of France just last year. So I fulfilled a dream of mine to live in France. And so this is where I'm joining you from. So welcome, everybody. Hey, great to see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, you read the Duolingo blogs and you want to use them with your students. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I'm going to be discussing our blog as well, and all the great opportunities there of articles that you could be utilizing in your classroom. As you want to know too, if you have any other blogs that you use in your target language, for example, if you have links to some great authentic blogs that you'd like to share with myself as well as other teachers, please link them in the chat. So I would be really curious as to maybe what you utilize either with your students or even personally to keep up with your language skills. I'll also be mentioning too that it's just me up here, so I'm going to do my best to take a moment, pause, look at the chat, see if there's any questions. If for whatever reason I don't get to your question, I'll make sure that I reach out to you after the session and I'll email you. Hey everybody, welcome. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about blogs in the language classroom. So we're going to be talking about the benefits first of utilizing blogs in the world language classroom. Why is this something that you should be doing? Why is this resource something you shouldn't be ignoring? So blogs are authentic resources which bring the culture and the language to life in a classroom. Blogs can allow your students to interact with authentic materials, see language in a real world setting, and interact with a wide range of subject matter, including culture. So it's a really great way to include fun cultural tidbits while also sneaking in some reading skills for your students. Blogs also offer a wealth of material that is constantly being uploaded online, meaning that you can find pretty much any subject you would like your students to read about and respond to in the classroom. The fact that new blogs are always being written means that you will be able to find blogs about current events, social interests, as well as more informal language use, which is most likely the type of language your students will interact with most if they ever go to the target language country and start interacting with native speakers. And also, language is always changing. So I remember when I was a student teacher, excuse me, and someone pointed out to me that the word for answering machine in the textbook and asked exactly what that was. It was really funny, actually. They didn't know what an answering machine was. It was outdated language. So blogs are uploaded a lot more frequently than a textbook is, which means that current language use will always be updated to match. Slang, expressions, cultural references, all of that is more easily attained through a blog rather than a textbook. It's also going to help you as the teacher to stay up to date with current trends and new language use. Take, for example, the pandemic, a lot of vocabulary and expressions that came about from the pandemic just more recently. So this is something that you're going to be able to learn from more easily than from a textbook, say, which gets updated every couple decades. Blogs are also usually written in much more straightforward and typical language, which means they may be easier for students to read and follow than, say, for example, a news article online, which may use more difficult language. And lastly, I'm going to make the claim that blogs are fun and perhaps even an unsuspecting source of material for your students. Beyond the textbook or news sources that students will interact with on a daily basis in so many other classes, blogs can be a unique way to incorporate digital resources into your teaching. So now let's talk a little bit about some authentic blogs. And as I mentioned, if you have any blogs that you like to utilize in your classroom, or you personally as a language learner like to use, please link them here. I'm sure so many other teachers will be really thankful of being able to discover some other blogs by checking out the chat here. So let's talk a little bit about some of these authentic resources and how you could find them, where you could find them. Of course, there's going to need to be some work on your end to vet these sources and read through them before assigning them to your students. So first blog shout out I'd like to give is our very own Duolingo blog. So someone already mentioned that they love reading the Duolingo blog. So it could be a really great source of information for your students as well. If you've never checked out the link, I'm gonna link it here in the chat. Just right there, blog.duolingo.com, you're going to be able to find all of our blogs. And our subject matter ranges from a couple here that I wanted to shout out. For example, 4 French sounds that will make you sound like a local. So this one's a really great one for French teachers who want to help their students sound more like a native speaker. This one is, why does Japanese have 3 writing systems? So understanding a little bit the history and the background as to why Japanese has 3 writing systems. I'm going to link that one here as well. This one is really cute. This one is 7 language facts to delight your holiday table. So this is just some fun, light reading about general language facts that could be interesting to share with your students, and then they could share with their families, for example. For Spanish teachers, sometimes a difficult concept for first year Spanish students to understand is this difference between ser versus estar, right? So what is the difference versus ser and estar? So I just shared that blog as well. We also have another frequent blog type. It's called Dear Duolingo. And this is actually, we take questions from our learners and we respond to those questions through Dear Duolingo on our blog. So this one is, Dear Duolingo, how do I memorize the gender of every noun in my language? So again, something difficult for first year language students and even beyond, right? Really, how do I memorize the gender of every noun? So I shared that blog here. And other than that, we have so many different blogs that you're able to search through. We have a search bar you're able to type through, see what kind of subjects we have that might be of interest to your students. But other than that, we have a lot of blogs specifically in the target language. So we have a Spanish specific blog. So this is great for your more advanced students. You want them to be utilizing these authentic resources and working solely in the target language. So I just shared with you the link to our Duolingo blog specifically in Spanish. We have another one in German. So again, for your German teachers, you could be, or your German learners even, you could be utilizing this authentic resource that's solely in the target language. And then we also have one in Portuguese. So I'm going to share that link here as well. So these are some really great authentic resources that you could be utilizing in your classroom, or you yourself can be utilizing if you are learning these languages. And I want to share some other favorite language blogs that I have come across. I was a French teacher, so I have a couple of French ones. This one is called Paris Zigzag, which is a Paris culture and history blog. So again, this is all in the target language, so it's really great for those French students to be reading a little bit about culture and history, about Paris specifically in the target language. And this one is called Oh Mon Château, which is really cute. It's all about, again, in French, and it's all about French chateau or castles. So I just shared that one with you as well. So take a look at that. Any French teachers out there, French learners, would be interested in reading some blogs in French. And then I'm not a Spanish teacher, but I did find one in Spanish that I wanted to share. It's called Blog de Viajes, which is a Spanish travel blog. So I wanted to share that with you here as well. So please share, though, with us any other blogs. There's, of course, thousands and thousands of blogs in the target language, as well as blogs in English, discussing certain grammar points, for example, of a language, or sharing vocab of a language, more geared towards, English speakers learning another language. But if you have any at all that you'd like to share, please link them here, or join us in the Educators Network and share those resources with teachers there as well. I'm sure so many teachers will be really appreciative. So now that we talked a little bit about some of these authentic blogs that you could be utilizing, I wanted to share with you a resource that we created. So this is a blog note catcher that we created, and I'm going to share it with you in just a moment. Here we are. So it's going to be popping up on your screen right now, and you'll be able to download it. So this really cute blog note catcher is asking your students to look at the text features ahead of time and make some observations about the text features and be guessing what the topic is about. And then, of course, as they're reading the blog, it's asking them to list words and vocabulary that they have learned. And then afterwards, asking them to summarize what they have learned in the blog, utilizing complete sentences. So this is a really great little resource that you could use, that students could be filling out while they are both before, during, and after reading the blog, or any other type of reading resources that you might be utilizing. And one thing that isn't listed here that you may want to try including is asking students any background information that they already know about the topic before reading the blog. For example, number one, we could edit this a little bit to say that they're making a guess as to what the topic is, and then asking students, what do you know about this topic already? This could really frame an interesting conversation for your students to see what they know about a certain topic, and then afterwards to be able to reflect as to what more they have learned about this topic, and whether or not their thoughts or maybe their opinions on a certain topic have changed. So a great way to be activating that background knowledge for your students, having a really interesting conversation as to what they know about a topic beforehand, and then reflecting after reading about it and seeing whether or not their opinions have changed, or what else they have learned about a certain topic. So now I want to talk about how you can kick it up a notch a little bit, and that's through Bloom's taxonomy. So Bloom's taxonomy is a hierarchical classification of the different levels of thinking. So from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. And we're going to take a look at this on the next page. So Bloom's taxonomy is a great way for teachers to frame class discussions, as well as determine the complexity and the difficulty of those discussions, and then the tasks associated. So we're seeing here some key verbs that classify, lower order thinking skills versus higher order thinking skills. So moving up the pyramid here. So we see remembering, understanding, applying. These are lower order thinking skills. And then when you get up to analyzing, evaluating, and then creating an original work, these are more difficult tasks for your students. So based upon that, we created another resource for you that I'm going to share. You're going to see it pop up on your screen now. You're going to be able to download it. So these are some really great comprehension checks for your students based upon Bloom's taxonomy. So again, these two handouts are focusing on both the lower order thinking skills, some of the skills, some of the tasks can be a little more easy, and then kicking it up a notch and making it a little more advanced. You could use these handouts to maximize your students' learning with blogs. So the comprehension check here we see is focusing on remembering and understanding information from the blog, such as who, what, where, when, and why. And next we see this let's think critically, where we're focusing on analyzing, evaluating, and creating with this new information that your students have learned. The creating part is particularly my favorite. Students are asked here to create their own original work based upon what they've learned. In this example, we have included a poem, but of course you could edit this to include other examples of students creating original works based upon what they have learned. This is a really great way to really see your students' creativity and learning shine by allowing them the ability to create something in their own words. And another way to kick it up a notch is by creating your own classroom blog. So I would really be curious if anyone here has yet done that. Let me know in the chat if that's something that you have done either by yourself for your students, or incorporating your students' words as well with the classroom blog. So it could be really great to encourage students to write posts individually to be added to your classroom blog. Or you could be even grouping students together and encouraging them to collaborate on a blog post to be published on your classroom blog. For example, the way that I see this is you can ask students to work together to explain a grammar point in their own words and then publish it on your classroom blog. So this is going to have a multitude of benefits if you do something like this. First off, the students writing the post themselves are going to have the benefit of explaining in teaching a concept in their own words, which would mean that they would really need to grasp that concept, which is going to deepen their own knowledge and understanding. Then the secondary benefit would be that all of your other students now and even in the future have the benefit of reading a fellow student's explanation of a concept that they may be struggling with. Sometimes as teachers, we sort of forget what it's like to be a beginner in that language. And so we may not always explain things at that beginner level or see things at that level anymore. And I'm going to share a story of when I was teaching, and this was really apparent to me. Once when I was teaching and sharing the conjugation of an irregular verb on the board, I asked my students what they saw about this verb that was similar to past verbs. I was expecting them to point out that this irregular verb was a boot verb in the sense that you could draw a boot around it and everything inside the boot was irregular and outside the boot was regular. I thought that this little trick of mine would help them remember the conjugations. And instead, a beginner student who, had fresh eyes, we could say, that they've never learned this verb before, they looked at this verb and they saw a pattern in the verb that I had never seen before, and I was shocked. So he actually saw another irregular verb inside the conjugations of this new verb within the boot. And by the way, for any French teacher, the verb was aller, and they saw the verb avoir within the boot, within the irregular conjugations. I was really shocked, and I shared this you that little trick that another student, beginner, fresh eyes student, got 100% on that verb quiz. And that wasn't thanks to my generic trick. That was thanks to a student who saw the verb in a way that I didn't, and I wouldn't have seen as someone who is an advanced speaker of that language now. So I'm not a beginner anymore looking at those verbs and these conjugations and these patterns in a new and fresh way. So this goes to say that your students are going to be able to perhaps explain things to another student that's going to be a little bit more clear for them to understand sometimes. And I also want to say that this would be a great way to practice your students' writing skills, of course, and it gives them something to be proud of as well. I remember when I was an elementary school student, for our last year in the school, we all created and published our own books, which were then available in the school's library to check out for years to come. And I cannot tell you how excited I was as a young student to publish my own book. I really would thought that I was going to be this famous publisher, this famous author, that my book was going to be available for years to come at my school's library. I would really excitedly check out other books from students from years past, and I really felt excited about that ability to publish my own work. I felt some pride in that. And I would say that blogs are the modern version of that. Your students can be really proud of the idea that their thoughts, their content, their words are published online, accessible by other students, teachers, even their families, and even for years to come. So make your students, these published famous bloggers in your school. Make them proud and excited of the work that they have done and they're learning, and explaining that to other students. I could say even that the student who saw that irregular verb conjugation, I made sure that I gave them a shout out to every other student that I told this trick to. I said, Michael, for example, not his name, shared with me this great trick. Everyone saw it. So that student was really proud that his learning was being shared with others and helping others. So the blog could be another great way for you to activate that excitement and that pride with your students. Also, I want to mention blogs are centered around words mostly, yes, of course, but take the opportunity to share pictures, videos, and even artwork that your students may create, as we're seeing here. It can give another creative outlet for your students to share what they've learned in your classroom and for everyone else to see it as well. So check out these adorable fan arts that the Duolingo team has received, for example. You could be sharing things similar to this on your blog as well. And I guess your blog, in this sense, could also be the modern day refrigerator where families proudly post adorable artwork and other mementos. So again, this could be something for years to come. Students could scroll through the blog and see these cute examples of learning in your classroom. Quick recap. So vet your blogs and be prepared. So of course, you're going to need to be reading the blog ahead of time, determining whether or not this is something that you want to be sharing with your students, and framing a lesson around the blog and being prepared. Encourage note-taking. So I shared with you this note catcher that we had created. Encourage note-taking for your students while, during, and after that they've read the blog. So that's something that they'd be practicing this skill that they could take and use not only in your classroom, but other classrooms and for years to come as students. And then utilize Bloom's taxonomy. So kick it up a notch a little bit. Focus on, some lower order thinking skills, of course, remembering vocab, listing out vocab, things of that nature. But then kick it up a notch, get a little bit more advanced with your students, and be asking them eventually to create their own original work based upon what they have learned from the blogs. And then kick it up a notch again with a classroom blog. So really encourage you to start a classroom blog, encourage your students to become published, famous bloggers in their school, and be helping students through their learning by sharing their experiences and their ideas. And lastly, share that blog with families, administration, and even other teachers. Again, really focusing on highlighting students' achievements and giving them something to be proud of course. So I'm curious, I asked earlier, have you ever used blogs in your language classroom before? So if you have, let me know a little bit about your experiences with them. Link some of these blogs that you have found helpful for your students and for your class, whether that be blogs in the target language. Hopefully, we want these authentic resources, of course. But if you have an interesting blog in English that explains certain concepts well, that may be of interest to some teachers as well. So feel free to link these blogs below, especially those authentic resources in the target language. And always asking for feedback. If you have any type of professional development that you would like to see in the future, please let me know. You're free to let me know here in the chat, or if you think of something later at any time, you're free to reach out to both myself and my team at educators@duolingo.com. So I'm going to share that with you here. So feel free to let us know what kind of PD sessions you'd like to see in the future. And then I'd like to also ask you, what kind of resources would you like to see in the future? What would be helpful for both you and your students in the classroom? So I've shared some newly created resources for you. We've created this note catcher, these comprehension checks. But if there's anything else that you're going to find helpful for the classroom, please let us know. And if you have any questions, you could always, or if you're a new teacher to utilizing Duolingo for schools and you need help getting started, you could always check out our help center. It's going to have more information as to how to get started, as well as contact us at educators@duolingo.com. Your Help Center is going to be located on the left-hand side of your Duolingo for Schools dashboard. And I do want to mention as well that in the Help Center, you're going to see both our past professional development sessions. I've run sessions on utilizing the Duolingo podcast in the classroom gamification utilizing Duolingo. I've talked about what else have we talked about? Lowering the effective filter with Duolingo's, the student streak societies, and maximizing the streaks and motivating your students through the streaks. I talked about classroom leaderboards. So these are all examples of past professional development sessions that I have ran. So I'm going to share with you, actually, this link is going to pop up on your screen now. Please feel free to bookmark this page where you're going to find both past PD sessions, all of the recordings, as well as future professional development sessions on the Help Center, and links as to how you could sign up for those so you could join me in the future. For example, next week, I'm going to be talking a little bit about tips for staying in the target language for both yourself as well as students, because of course this sometimes can be difficult in the classroom to be always staying within the target language. And then after that, we're going to be talking about the following week, we're going to be talking about student literacy skills utilizing Duolingo and how we could boost literacy skills with Duolingo. So please join me in the following weeks for those professional development sessions. Again, the link I just shared with you, you're going to be able to bookmark that and see both future and past PD sessions. Oh, I just had a question in. Let me see the question. Is there a Duolingo for Schools account on Instagram? There is a Duolingo for Schools account on Instagram, so please feel free to follow us on Instagram. We have an account on Twitter as well. We have an account on TikTok even, where we're sharing videos of teachers using Duolingo for Schools. We have, of course, our Facebook group. We have both a public Facebook profile as well as our private Facebook profile, our educators network. And actually, if anyone is not I promised to share the link, so here we are. Thanks for the reminder. We have our educators network link that I just shared with you, so please feel free to join us there. You could get to know some other teachers who utilize Duolingo, who are always there for any help that you need. If you ever have any questions, it's a great way to pose your questions, as well as share any resources or see other resources and tips that have already been shared by other Duolingo teachers. So join us on our other social media accounts. We have LinkedIn even, so we're all over the place. So make sure you follow us and keep in touch with what's going on with Duolingo for Schools. And I would only suggest some useful and interesting blogs to my students, but I never went deep to make a classroom blog or blog-related activities. Yeah, I mean, of course, these blogs are great to be suggesting, as you mentioned, for your students to use, outside of the classroom. But some interesting ideas as to how to take them into your classroom and create activities around that and help facilitate their learning in the classroom. It's, as I mentioned, a great way to be infusing culture with your students while focusing on the target language. And hopefully I've inspired you a little bit to as well start a potential classroom blog. But thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here and have a great day. And I hope to see you in the Educators Network. If for any reason I didn't get to your question, I'll make sure to reach out to you separately. Bye, everybody. Thank you.